One. Right.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining Pivot Capital's Black History Month panel on business and entrepreneurship. I'm Alan Amoon, your moderator and host, excuse me. Some tongue twisters going on there, and I'm joined with panelist Will Witherspoon. Many of you may know Will from his days in the NFL, but currently he's an entrepreneur and independent consultant. He has interests in farming, IT, and real estate. Welcome, Will. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Looking forward to seeing how this whole conversation really comes through today, and I'm interested more to see what kind of questions it poses from the attendees.
Definitely. And next, I'd like to introduce Shonda McFadden. Shonda works with Oberland Timberwolf. Did I pronounce that right? Group.
Yeah, I put the Oberlander Timberwolf group at Merrill Lynch.
Okay, out of Chicago.
Yeah, if you're a tongue twister, that's it.
Yeah. She does. She's a certified exit planner advisor, as well as finance. And maybe you can give a little more detail, Shonda, on your background and what you do.
For sure. So I was a commercial lender for about 10 years and transitioned over to wealth management. So I help business owners, build wealth essentially through the various tools available.
Okay. Another representative in the finance industry there, as well as Dre Thompson with Hubert Development, LLC. And he's in the construction and real estate business. Dre, if you can give us a little more detail on your offering.
Sure, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. I've been in the real estate development field for about 20 years, a little over 20 years. We focus on wellness developments, which consist of luxury apartments, some commercial retail, and also cluster home developments and some townhomes.
Definitely, thank you. And Alvina Alston, did I pronounce the last name right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, excellent. And, just multimedia. I mean, her resume in multimedia is very vast. She's worked with some of the top name companies, Fox, CBS, as well as local eyewitness at WABC. And was that I was trying to look at where that was from. Is that in Chicago or?
That News Nation?
Yeah, WABC.
Well, News Nation was the former WGN, but it's now nationwide.
Okay, indeed.
Nationwide is in more than 80 million homes across the United States and all of their local affiliates. So, it's big. It's a new channel. It's, someone has some of the top names in broadcasting, from Dan Abrams to Ashley Banfield to Joe Donlin. So tune in.
Definitely. So we've got a wide range of disciplines here and backgrounds, and a lot of experts in what they do. So I want to say thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join this panel and really to be able to share your experiences in terms of entrepreneurship and business. Myself, coming from an entrepreneurial family, about 3 or 4 generations in entrepreneurship, I'd like to lead off with legacy. And legacy was one of the big things for me in my journey to being an entrepreneur. Having my grandfather, having his sawmill in Arkansas, and having his sons work in that business, and my father having that entrepreneurial spirit, and as well as having a spirit that he put in us that, there are no excuses. You work, you do what you got to do to make it, you have honor and you deliver on what you say you're going to do. So a lot of those were the things that were my hallmark in my journey to entrepreneurship and in helping to establish my own company as a consultancy, Amoon Industries, and then later with my partners, Rakesh and Jameson, with Pivot Capital. So I'd like to start with you, Will, in terms of, and the reason why is because your career is varied. I mean, you started off in the NFL, and I'm sure there was things that were going on way before that, and then you moved out into so many different things. And we don't hear a lot of those stories. We just hear the sports end of it. So I want to be able to understand, how did you go from your background, sports, and into entrepreneurship and being a successful businessman?
Well, of course, sports has always played a role. It's opened up doors and given me opportunities, right? So that has been kind of a catalyst to move into these other entrepreneurial ventures. But that being said, oddly, I laughed about my first venture. Stayed true to something I've always enjoyed. I've always been an animal friendly guy, pet friendly guy, and my first venture was a doggy daycare business. Did very well at that. Got to kind of get my feet wet and kind of figure out some of the things, the quirks and ins and outs of just starting your own business, and that was what kind of launched my mindset of like, okay, I can do this. And but there's so many things that I think I look at and say I enjoy, that I kind of took that moment to looking down those avenues, So, I looked down the restaurant road a little bit and dabbled in that, put a little bit of money into something, nothing that I was feeling like it was overly risky for, but I got to learn from it. For me, it's more about the education and learning what you do and don't like about each particular venture. Again, the sports mindset, I think for me has been a big part of it, because I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not good at. And, to me, that's kind of like that head coach, assistant coaches, that kind of ideal. So you're placing pieces in order and finding the right people to fit, each of those individual ideals. There are some people who are really, really good at details. I can paint a broad picture really quickly. I can get down to some of the finer points, but when it comes to those minute details that you need to be sure are correct, that's where I put somebody in place. That's where I know I definitely have to have somebody there. And it's a second pair of eyes to look over everything else. And the other thing is, never being afraid to step out in front of, what I like call oncoming traffic. That business world is oncoming traffic. You're always going to get some flag back, no matter what you throw out there, no matter where you're looking, no matter what you're trying to develop or do. So again, having that shield on has always been great to say, okay, I'm willing to step out in the traffic and find out what I need to know. But again, the doggy daycare business actually is what really launched me into that. Subsequently beyond that, I grew into farming, of course, agriculture, staying at several boards on sustainable ag and agriculture itself. And then, of course, I grew into the developer side, understanding, getting to know more and more about multifamily, single family, business development, mixed use identities that you like to try and place yourself within, and know what goes into each of those. And I'm still learning. I'm still growing there for sure, and still growing on all sides. And I look forward to, what the next step is going to be. I've got my hands in several little projects now, and looking forward to, again, pushing that forward and teaching others, how they can do the same thing.
Definitely. And I mean, that was an excellent testimony. And I heard a lot about team building and, making that kind of carrying on from sports, right? And as well as putting experts into place and then doing what you love and what you know. And I think that's a huge part of entrepreneurship. You just can't go out and do something because that's what you have a good idea for. You have to put the right team together. You have to have some knowledge based on it. And obviously you want to be able to be passionate about it. Kind of in that same vein, but different, one of the statistics that, is out there, but probably not as well known, is that African-American women are leading in entrepreneurship in this nation. Some of your biggest entrepreneurs in that particular subgroup is one of the largest groups of entrepreneurs in the nation. So Alvina, I want to ask you, from your perspective as an African-American woman, what led you into entrepreneurship, and what does that mean to you, being an African-American woman and taking that on in, today's society?
For me, coming from two parents who went to college, or, my mom subsequently finished high school, but I was at Fox News at the time, and I was seeing all of these publicists come representing these big names, and, I had the opportunity of helping them out. They would call me and say, Alvina, I have so-and-so in town. Could you help me put them on TV? And I would do it across the nation. And then I said, why am I doing this? I said, look, I'm good at this. I can do it. But sometimes we have fear. It was a Jonah in the well moment. So in 2008, I was doing this. I said, I'm going to launch my company. They're good at it. I'm just going to try it. So I went into the bathroom. It was a single bathroom. And I went into the bathroom, and that was my first office. I locked the door, and I would cover up the sounds of the bathroom, and I would start booking people on TV. And I was like, what do I call this? More. Everybody wants more TV. So I called it More Media, because the TV bug, when it bites you, it does something to your self-esteem and everything else. And everyone loved it. I was like, I'm going to call it More Media. But what happened? I had fear. we all had fear. No one did it. I didn't know who to turn to because no one who really looked like me that I could approach owned the company or owned the business. So what I did was I bought the dummies, NFL for dummies, basketball for dummies. And like I told you all,
the series has aged so well, and it's come back and it's been like it's never gone away. Why do you both think that's had so much?
oh, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, there was some audio that jumped in there.
Oh, so I bought those books. Like I told you guys before, I didn't know End Zone from AutoZone, and I studied. And then the Lord just started bringing me clients. I mean, my first client in 2012 was David Tyree. He had just won the Super Bowl, and he's like, Alvina, come on, we're gonna go to the Super Bowl. And he said I did so well. I thought I did well, by placing him everywhere on TV and everything. And it turned out to really be a great thing. But let me tell you all what happened, especially for us as people of color. I had the fear. I said, I am not going to step out on my own company when I have a job. When I have a job that's giving me a paycheck every week. But what happened was I had a job. I was making good money, but I could never seem to make ends meet. What happened? After David Tyree and I came back from Super Bowl, it was a Jonah in a well moment. The top network had never had layoffs. That's Fox News Corporation. Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity, very stable. He came to us and said, 60 people in our department. We're laying off the entire department. Laying off. You guys can choose to go to other shows. You have to apply, but everyone's getting laid off. This had never happened, and I knew it was my fault. Why was it my fault? I was like, it's my fault because God wanted me to do something more. If he would not have pushed me out, it would never have been a successful more media. Down the street, someone gave me an office space for free. A guy had put on TV. He said, I'm going to give you a free office space after this happened. I went downstairs, I cried, and I was like, it's now or never. And let me tell you something, the rest is history. I had to learn how to run a business. I had to learn how to do all of those things that, our counterparts, Caucasian kids, they learn, they go with their fathers and mothers to offices. I didn't even know the basics, but guess what? By me learning and going through those tough times, I'm able to mentor other people. So you're right, Black women are spearheading because we have to do it. It's sometimes we do it, beautiful things are created in fire. And that's more media was created in fire. And that's what happens. We had to do it. I had 3 young kids at the time who are all now college graduates or in college. And at the time I had to do it. It was no way for me to do it because I didn't have any help. My mom still lived in public housing. I was helping her. Like I said before during our initial meetings, my father was found dead and I had a sister that died of AIDS. So it was no one that could help me. I had to do it on my own. So I knew that was God laying everybody off, and I still blame myself for that in a good way because of me, because I would never have done it.
Excellent. I mean, you make me think of something, me being ex-military, there's a phrase called burning the boats. And what that, if you're familiar with that phrase, and what that means is that basically, you don't give yourself a way to exit back. You don't give yourself a way to escape. You got to move forward. And, a lot of that energy and a lot of that testimony is about somebody who decided, I'm going to continue to move forward. And I like that. I didn't know End Zone from AutoZone. I'm going to steal that, by the way. I'm going to use that at some point. But I'm going to ride on Alvina's energy, and I'm going to shift over to you, JT, because some things she said in her testimony that, kind of makes me think of you and, doing what you've done in terms of hip hop and having the Hip Hop Hall of Fame. You did something that no one had done. There's no precedent for it. You didn't know if it was going to work or not. You had, I don't know what your blueprint was that, you put in place to get that show going. So what I'd like, to hear from your entrepreneurial background and spirit, because you're kind of like me, you got a diverse background, military and so forth. How did you come from where you started to having that idea and pushing it forward and to where you are now?
Wow. And you're right. Having to come behind Miss Alvina's energy is incredible, by the way. I'm glad I had a cup of coffee.
I'm glad I went first.
I'll just say this, and I feel her passion. And from our previous conversations, I think, when we're talking to an audience and we want them to really understand and gravitate to what, the struggle really is, it's good to put our feelings out there and at the same time, try to give a good workable blueprint, and you're right. I come from a single mom. You know, I was born in Brooklyn, raised in Queens, right? You know, played Matchbox Cars with Black Rock and Ron. You know, one way is LL. Jam Master Jane was around the corner this way, Fubu's this way, Linden Boulevard with Jackson Highs that way, down the Tribe Called Quest. So we were all young people growing up, didn't know anything about who we would be in the future, right? So you really never know. And so everybody comes from different backgrounds. You know, I left there and ended up in public housing in Harlem, but I met my grandfather's brother as I lived with him in Queens, who played with Billie Holiday, Louis Armstrong, Cab Calloway, and some of the greats of Harlem and the Harlem Renaissance and the music. And you got to understand, they come from a place where they couldn't stay in those places or eat in those places where they perform, right? And then if you look into it now, they couldn't even own their own music or publishing. And now we're hearing about all these major deals, people buying up people's music and catalogs and all this. And our people still ain't got the 40 acres in the mule, let alone their own publishing money. That's a whole nother topic for another forum.
Well, yeah, we can talk about the 40 acres and the mule, right?
Hey, and I'm just saying, you know, if you didn't get the 40 acres and the mule, and Pastor Price said, you know, I played Monopoly without getting the first 1,500 to see how long I would last. He didn't last very long, right? So my point is, you know, going from that experience in Harlem and moving to Los Angeles, it was like a culture shock to now you were Bloods and Crips from growing up where Shaft was, right? So, you know, my single mother did the best she can. We moved 15 times, but good thing for sports. I play basketball and football, and enabled me to get other teamwork skills, networking skills, and all the rest. So what the next thing is that we was doing it was during the Rodney King era. I know y'all remember the LA riots.
I was in LA.
Hey, there it is. So watch how the gang troop started. I was at First Stand Me Church. I was working with the Ministers Alliance. I was working with the Business Alliance. I was working, bringing together United Minority Contractors. Come to find out, we brought them all together, gentlemen, and we didn't have enough money to build a 10-story building from a bonding perspective. That's another conversation of where we got to go as a people, right? So there was no, you know, we did public and private partnerships. Bill Clinton got involved, Maxine Waters, godmother, everybody bless her soul. But it was about opening up opportunities for us to own businesses and get expanded. So that became public and private partnerships. I know you heard of the empowerment zones, right? They call them opportunity zones today.
Right.
So out of all that, there was no money coming into our community. So I said to myself, you know, and I was, you know, worked in the Bay Area where I raised my kids as well. Learned Master P, E42 Short, the independent music game. So albums out the trunk of the car, the Who Riders, sell 100,000 records, you know, that's 700 grand. You understand how you get street rich, but then you got to parlay that into other things. So I created the Hip Hop Hall of Fame, flew back to New York City with a deal with BET and a national syndication deal, broadcast the show, used my own money, put up my own apartment buildings, which by the way, I probably lost 1.6 mil in that. But the cool piece is, the show got done, right? But then after the show, Tupac got killed, right? Literally days. So now I'm running after the Kraft macaroni and cheese guy, right? Running after the Sprite folks, trying to get advertisers in. So you ask a person, how do you struggle through all this with all of these setbacks, things that's out of your control? You don't control the media. You don't control the advertising. You don't control the access to capital. How do you perform? You just got to do it in the military mindset. I'm just being honest with you. So we get a new deal, get ready to announce it at Showtime, Biggie gets killed. So now you fast forward to right now, we're in position now to do a $1.6 billion development in the heart of Midtown, adjacent to Penn Station, for the Hall of Fame that don't just have a Hall of Fame, but a hotel, residential, retail, entertainment complex. I say that humbly to say we co-own it. It's one thing to build something or to put up something, but if you don't own it, so people got mad because I'm about ownership. So you ask me, what is the driving force to this? It is just pure dedication and wanting what you want. And then sometimes you sacrifice friends, sometimes family, sometimes a whole lot of other things, but you must educate yourself, overcome that fear and push forward. And by the way, it's easier said than done. It's not for the faint of heart.
Definitely. I mean, then the energy is just, shout out to the Boogie Down Bronx, birthplace of hip hop. Just got to let it be said. But, you know, the energy, man, the energy here and just the truth and the realism, Dre, man, you know, as I listen to these panelists and I look at your background, understanding real estate very well, you know, there's a lot of what Black people are familiar with. This is not new to us, making something out of nothing. You know, that's what we do, and we do it better than anybody else.
Mhm.
But in construction, there's a lot of planning that has to go into that. There's a lot of development. There's a lot of, schedule, scope, and all of those sorts of things. And in your development of real estate and construction, how do you, see planning into how you've developed your business and that entrepreneurial mindset? Because there's planning on everything that, everyone has said as well, but I also want to make that clear that there's that fire and that drive to make something out of nothing. But there's also a great deal of planning and structure and timeline that has to go into that.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I'm kind of going to piggyback off of everyone because it's a little bit of what everyone said thus far. And the most important thing is you have to believe that your beliefs are greater than anyone's doubt, right? So you put a plan together and you execute it. It's simple as that. But what you said, Alan, is having the right team in place. Okay. So it starts from concept to completion. All right. Within your concept, you've got to have, your architects, your engineers, to put your vision on paper and see it through. You've got to talk with city officials and municipalities and things of that nature. But most importantly, like I said, you have to have your plan pre-formatted before you even start the process. If you don't have your plan pre-formatted before you start the process, you're pretty much planning to fail. You might as well plan to fail.
Very well said. And that's a perfect segue to Shonda. And, and there's a reason why I saved Shonda for last is because she's a certified exit planner. So she works with entrepreneurs. She works with, builders. And, one of the things that people don't tend to look at is, I want to build this business. I want to build this opportunity. But then, you're so busy building it, you're not looking at, how do I exit out of it? How do I move past it? How do I, either pass it on or whatever that exit may look like. So Shonda, if you could maybe let us know what you see from your profession dealing with a lot of the people that are on the panel, for business owners, what are some of the things that when they start a business, they should be focusing on? And, toward maybe, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, when they're looking at legacy, how they should be exiting the business and what their life plan may look like after that.
For sure. So like I mentioned, I'm an advisor with the Oberlander Timberwolke Group at Merrill Lynch. And a lot of what we do focuses on that planning. And so we start very early on with our business owners and our entrepreneurs, because understanding that structure and that team that Will and Dre mentioned is extremely important in kind of getting things going and stepping out of that hustler mindset and into now, okay, I've built something. Now, how do I convert that into wealth? That's really what we focus on. And the earlier you start doing that and having those conversations and building those teams, the more options you actually give yourself for an exit, right? So if you've built a balance sheet and you have liquidity on your balance sheet, you don't need that business to generate a lot of wealth for you from that perspective because you have liquidity. But if you don't have liquidity and you're approaching retirement age, guess what? You need to extract the most value from that company as possible, which means that maybe your options are a little limited, right? So there's a client that I'm working with now who in his spirit really wants to sell that company back to his employees, but financially that deal doesn't make sense for him. Had he saved and built his balance sheet along the way, he would have had more options to do that at the end, at that final exit stage. So, I'm going to take a couple of things from each person because it's funny, they all go into the points that I was going to make. But the first thing that we always recommend is that you start building that team early on and thinking about what people, when we're entrepreneurs, when we're hiring folks, it's always tied to revenue, right? So if I'm working, I need someone else as a salesperson, or if I'm, making widgets, I need someone else who can make more widgets, right? But there's a point in your career or in that business cycle where you need to make more strategic hires and strategic partnerships. So maybe that doesn't instantly contribute to your top line, but that's something that will ultimately lead to a more profitable business or just a business model in general. The next thing that I talk about is that diversified balance sheet, right? So your business, if you're a business owner, that business represents a huge portion of your net worth. Unfortunately, though, it's not something that we have a value number for, right? So we all know that we have great businesses, but how do you value that? And there's not necessarily a secondary market where you can go like, with Apple and figure out what that holding is trading for. So that's a huge portion of your balance sheet that's kind of unknown, right? So how do you build other assets on your balance sheet to kind of help compensate for that? So retirement assets, more brokerage assets that allow you to build that wealth in different ways. And then the final thing that I always recommend a business owner have access to very early on is access to capital, cheap capital, right? So not any capital, because we can all give 20%, 100% loans from wherever. Those flood our neighborhoods. Those are in our communities. The payday loans, we can get that all day, but that doesn't help us build wealth. That puts us in a situation where we're always trying to catch up and make ourselves whole. And, that's one of the things that I grew up very similar back income neighborhood community, a lot of crack on the streets, right? So, just changing that mindset from that hustle mentality now to I'm building wealth and I'm building assets that make me wealthy versus make me look wealthy.
I like that, man. That was the perfect way to end that segment. Thank you. Thank you. That was a cherry on top, because you said a lot of stuff in there. And it's because it's interesting. I've had conversations with people and, they've asked me to evaluate their business plan, and I've said that it's not going to work. And, for those of you who know me, I'm direct, not mean, I'm just direct. And, they're like, well, why do you say that? Because your network isn't robust enough. If you open a bar and you only have one person supplying liquor and something happens to that particular vendor, your bar is going to close in short order. So you need to be a little more diverse in your network and your suppliers and things of that nature. So you spoke a lot about that, and as well as transitioning from the hustle mentality to the business mentality, they are not the same. There's some hustle in business, but there's definitely a demarc, if you will, in terms of, how you're able to grow your wealth and build your business. So, some great points in that. I want to kind of take that and move that to challenges. And Alvina, I want you to continue to, keep the place fired up. In terms of challenges, a lot of African Americans, building up into business in corporate America, there's challenges. There's stereotypes. There's a lot of sports and entertainment on this panel, but that's also a stereotype for African Americans, that those are the industries we're pigeonholed into. But if you listen to everybody here, they're also business people, regardless if they're in sports and entertainment. Any one of the panelists here could run any corporation that you can, name. They could be in the Ford Corporation, they could be at Merrill Lynch, they could be at, Boeing, because the mentality to be able to grow business and to run a business is the same, but once again, there's the stereotypes that we have to overcome. And, as African Americans, that, you're, either in this role as an entertainer or this role as an athlete, and that's all you can be. Or if you try to get into a role where you are in that leadership position, you're being doubted. Or in the other side, someone has to co-sign for you, or someone has to, be your benefactor, because you may not be able to do that on your own, or you need someone to hold your hand. So I'm going to let you loose, Alvina, and, give us a testimony on that. Go ahead, cut it on them.
That is so important that you said that. But before I begin, really quickly, I just want to just really thank and honor someone on our panel, Will Witherspoon, who that's why I'm here. But he is the epitome of excellence. That he took his, he isn't an athlete is just one part of what he is. He has taken the bull by the horns, and he has said, you know what, I'm going to keep myself relevant as a successful business owner. So he has shown us that the NFL gave him an opportunity, and we know that means not for long, right? So Will was like, okay, not for long. I'm going to take this and run with it. He was a star. Every Super Bowl, he is the star, because what he's done is he's taken that opportunity and he was able to parlay that into other successful businesses. And he also helps and mentors others. He's been a close friend of mine for 10 years, and we are only as strong as those we embrace. So I just want to say that. Also, what it is that the only limitations that we have, we place them on ourselves. For me, our motto is no doesn't exist. When I walked in Fox News, I had my father's food stamp picture. That's the only picture I had of him, and it was big on my desk. And they tried to make me ashamed of that. We allow We give people permission to make us feel ashamed. We open that door. If we don't open that door, it doesn't exist. So we have to be accountable for ourselves. We have the backs of our ancestors on our backs. They sacrificed. They made the way, you know, for us to do what we're doing. So we could either become better or bitter. I chose to be better because in doing that, I am breaking not only generational curses, but habits. Me becoming a first-time homeowner, me becoming a business owner. Of course, I'm going to make mistakes, but guess what? We have to look in the mirror and tell ourselves that we are enough. We are enough because, you know, we are all looking for that seat at the table, right? I said, forget the seat at the table. I'm the table. I'm the table. I don't need the seat. Because when I walk in the room, they think I'm the athlete's girlfriend or something else. I'm going to tell you guys a quick story. I had a dinner. I have a lot of clients that are white. And we had a dinner, it was very expensive. So the black card came out. The waiter said, oh, you know how to sign his signature very well. And my client came over and said, no, that's her card. Did I get upset? No, I just smiled because what we need to do is we need to take those experiences and use that experience as our fuel. Because when the enemy hate when I wake up, because when I wake up, I'm ready. I'm ready for what's going to happen and what my day will bring. Because it's up to us to write our own life story, and we have to make it a bestseller. We all overcome challenges. In 2000, I was working at ABC. My husband and I had triplets, all natural. My great-grandmother had 2 sets of triplets, 2 sets. It came to me, I thought it was 1 baby, and the doctor said, your baby has 6 legs. I said, what? Come to find out, it was 3. But in 7 months, they had all passed away from various illnesses. And prior to that, I had a baby who had water on the brain, and she had passed away, and they all passed away. But wait, while the babies were passing away, the doctor said, we are 99.9% that you're HIV positive, Miss Austin. I said, how? I'm married, I've never used drugs. How can that be? How can that be? A week later, at that time, it took a week to get the results. They came back, we made a mistake. But let me tell you how, don't be sad. Let me tell you how through that experience, you know, God gives us back everything we lose. I have 3 healthy children. I had 1 at the time, but in me going through that gave me the armor to deal with these athletes and these CEOs. It gave me the armor to say, oh, no, you will not quit. I had some athletes that wanted to commit suicide, some of your favorite athletes that wanted to commit suicide, homicide. They didn't know how to handle themselves with the pressure of making millions. So by me going through that, God fortified me to be able to not only become their brand manager, but to also mentor to them. Because 99% of my job is mentoring these young men and women of color. And sometimes my white CEOs, when they face problems, like, look, no, we're going to get down to this. It's combat zone. Had I not gone through that and those experience of racism with all the networks, we talk about the NFL, the news business is like 1960. They don't want us there. So having had that experience, it gave me that power because I was blind. I was happy. Ooh, this is going to be good. God had to fortify me and mold me in what? The fire. The fire. So I say that to say that it doesn't matter what it looked like. Victory for us is always certain. Look at this power on this panel. All of you guys are trailblazers. You're able to transform. You transform your world. You transform your life. And that's why God has me here. It's not just about my success. It's transforming a nation of Black and brown kids to see and be who they want to be so that we can change our narrative. And I could change my narrative. And I still really don't know where my father's body is after he died. But guess what? Is that going to stop me? No, because there's a million kids. Look at our kids. They're walking over bloodstains on concrete, going to school, and they expect us to learn with seeing somebody shot down. That's the kind of world we live in. But guess what? Aren't we here? We're smiling, we're happy. You know, sometimes I had 2 nickels in my pocket at Fox. You know, I didn't know if the water or the light bill was going to get turned on, but guess what? We have joy. We are a resilient people. You can't stop us, and we are able to persevere and make it no matter what. And that's what this is about.
Man, you know, I don't know who's going to follow up behind that, but no, I mean, that was strong. And thank you, Arvina, because you shared a lot of things in that, a lot of things that, you know, are personal, but at the same thing, a lot of things that a lot of people can relate. And what I want to speak to on that is that, you know, I think amongst African Americans, and I hope like I can speak for our people in this regard, business and life is not separate for us. You know, we don't, and what I mean by that is your life is a part of your business and vice versa. And like you're saying, you take those life lessons into your business because we're very much a family and a community oriented people. And so a lot of the things that we do go back into our families and back into our communities. And, you know, a success is not a destination, it's a journey. And as you continue to walk that journey, you know, and success is not the same thing for everybody. It's not always money. It's not always influence or something of that nature. It's wherever you can, you know, provide peace for yourself and peace for the people around you in your community. And, you know, so I just wanted to kind of, you know, add on to that and say that was something that definitely needed to be heard. At this time, I want to ask any of the attendees if they have any questions for any panelists. We can take some questions for a general question or a question in general for a particular panelist. I'll give it a minute and see if any questions pop up in the chat there.
No, I think Alvina might have talked him off the ledge over there. Hey, this goes with it all the time. All the time.
No, but
by the way,
hey,
this
you know,
is the same Alvina you get in person on Monday morning, on Tuesday, on Friday, 8 a.m., 5 p.m., 3 a.m.
Right, but that's, you know,
Yeah,
but that's the kind
exactly.
of energy that we need, and that's what I wanted this panelist to be, you know, in terms of just, you know, getting out that truth, our truth, in terms of business and how we can, you know, do it and how we see it. So I'm going to give it a little while longer for a question, you know, but if no, so I'm going to go over to JT, and if a question pops up, I'll get the question after I ask JT this question. So JT, man, you know, we talked a lot about community, and in listening to your, you know, background and testimony in terms of what you've done in New York and LA. And, you know, those are two different types of communities. You know, New York is not the same as LA. And I've been out to both of them, and it's two different energies and two different vibes. But at the same time, I know you're very business focused. Why is the community focus and the business focus, to me, when I hear you talk, they're equally important? Where some people will be like, no, I just want to focus on business and I'll get to community when I can. But with you, that seems to be a very important part of who you are and how you go about doing your business. Can you speak to that a bit?
Wow. I think you just highlighted a point that sometimes we even overlook. How are you going to be in business without the community? How are you going to sell a product or open a store without a consumer or a customer? That is the community. When we do marketing and promotions, what are we doing? We're reaching out to those particular local communities or regional communities or national communities that affect our business, right? So I look at this in a multifaceted way. You know, when I said what I said earlier, I must say, like Ms. Alvina and most of us here, truly God has been good to us here on this panel, you know, because there was things that we probably would have made or decisions we would have made that God allowed us not to make through whatever reason that happened, that probably saved our hides in certain transactions, right? There's certain times and certain people that might not have been a part or a good fit on that team. You know, I heard the developer Dre talk about the team and the engineers and the architects. I mean, and you understand this, Alan, sometimes we have to wear many roles
Right.
as a veteran, as a athlete, as a businessman, as an entertainment producer, that sort of stuff. Sometimes, you know, the hats are different, just like a coach deals with different players on his team. The superstar gets treated one way, another gets treated another way. That's still community, right? So I'm saying this to say that, you know, once you have that team, the next thing you got to do is protect your IP and your property. And that's something that the Hall of Fame ran into after the first show. Everybody was saying, other people come around and say that they were you. You know, they would impersonate you. I'm the Hip Hop Hall of Fame. I'm this, I'm that. So having to shut down people to be the real authentic you and who you are, you know, that's a journey of learning and scholarship within the business by itself. So I'm answering this kind of lightly to say, it takes more than just yourself. It
Mhm.
takes your team. It takes the community. If there is mentors, if you're fortunate, we didn't grow up with mentors. Last time I checked, if I was a single child, there wasn't like very many men running Fortune 500 companies, but I was fortunate to see a few African Americans who came down in junior achievement programs or through the church and was able to see, role models of people, how they carry themselves when they in that room. So now you learn how to carry yourself, how to talk, how to communicate. So all these things, you have to take the enrichment from the community to be able to actually thrive in your business. We've done that with the Hip Hop Hall of Fame. We've done that with Renaissance Equity Ventures. And in closing on that, I'd say this: public and private partnerships to build empowerment in the communities, to create wealth and generational wealth, and open up opportunities for access to capital and business. Those things are all important, but you got to have a community element in it, because without the community element in it, they'll feel as though it's a gentrifying move or something to take away from the community and not add to it. And that's what's very important. Community is your customers. Community is your family. Community is your people. And you cannot survive in business without the community where you live, work, or do business.
Strong, man, strong. I mean, that's the truth right there. And, I think if we have a mentality where we separate or segregate ourselves from our community, then, we're defeating ourselves. And, we're removing ourselves from that which feeds us. So when we have a lot of business people and they kind of feel like they've moved past a particular thing, I think you can grow, as a person, as who you are, but you should never forget or never ignore from that for what you came from, because it is a part of you and it's a contributor to your success.
I will add one last thing. So what you basically said, like the other young lady talked about the exit strategy, and the target hires. So yes, we're scaling up, right? So we're going to go up. So we might not have the time to deal with community on a regular basis, but those are part of your hierarchy or your team on the ground. They ought to be community and customer focused for you to be successful as you scale up as well.
Definitely. We have a few questions coming in. Dre, I'm going to jump over to you, sir. One of the questions from a panelist is, before LinkedIn, how did y'all build your network? So, I know that you're a networker. You're a person who reaches out and finds the right subject matter experts and the right people. So maybe you can kind of detail your philosophy or process to be able to do that.
Oh gosh. Building my network started when I was a kid, essentially, right? Because you have your friends from childhood. Growing up in New York City, you got AAU teammates and things of that nature. So you have to realize that these are all people that you know and you associate with on a day-to-day basis. Once you grow up, it's like everyone still can reach out to each other. So even if I don't know someone, I know someone who knows someone. And that basically just connects the dots in every direction, because we're all diverse. I may know Will, I might not know something, but Will knows something or know someone that knows someone. Will might direct me to Alvina. Alvina might direct me to Shonda. So, before the internet and before LinkedIn and all of this stuff, we still had word of mouth. And fortunately for us, within the Black community, all we had was connecting the dots with each other.
Right. That's very well said. And I still use that to this day. And, a lot of that word of mouth and, people on this panelist, on the panel, and it's, to me, the most successful method to be able to build your network. So thank you, Dre.
Thank you.
Shonda, I have a question from one of the attendees. What are the key elements of a business plan when starting a business? I want to add on to this because you said something that I've been thinking about since you said it, which is access to capital. So I want you to keep in mind what the attendee said, but also want you to add on to where I don't think African Americans have the clear understanding, because that is a major part of your business plan, is how do you gain access to capital? And like you said, not payday loans or things of that nature, but, real capital, to be able to move your business forward, right? And what's that process look like? And I know that's a big question because there's a lot that goes into that, but if you can kind of paraphrase that as much as possible, but I'd like to get that out there.
Sure. So I'll take the business plan piece first. So we can go through like detailed and very, industry specific terms on how that works. But really, when you think about your business and what you need, all businesses need two things: clients and capital. You need customers and you need capital. So if you think about that and you start building out your plan, your business plan with those two things in mind, you'll be fine. And the rest of like the formality of it all, you can find a template to fill that in. But really what you're looking for is, who is your target client? How do you access that client? Where are they? Right? Who knows them? Right? That's a big part of your business plan. How do you market to those folks? The other part is, how do you fund all of this? Right? And that goes, I guess, to your question. And that it takes a step back to financial literacy and some of the things that we don't get in our communities and in our schools for sure, right? But to have access to cheap capital, you need that diversified balance sheet, right? You need financial literacy around this entire topic. So credit, you need a strong credit score, obviously, but when you look at your balance sheet and they talk about personal guarantors, what do you bring to the table as a guarantor? What are they looking for you to bring to the table as a guarantor? And at the end of the day, they're looking for a second source of repayment from you. So as an owner, as a business owner, are you presenting yourself as that second source of repayment for whatever that loan is that you're applying for your business? And so your balance sheet will tell us that. If you have liquidity on your balance sheet, and we know that we can look to you if something happens with the business to repay that loan, then you can do that. But there are several programs now that are geared towards minority-owned businesses, grants and different things that are available today that didn't exist maybe even 5-10 years ago, that we all need to access to. And so it's really about playing in traffic, getting your name out there, figuring out who is running these programs, and then sit down and have just a very authentic and a real conversation about what you need to qualify, and be honest with yourself about what that is. And if you don't know, find an expert, find a team member. We don't have to know everything. I made a joke with a client yesterday that, the market's choppy, things are all over the place. And he's saying that maybe I should just do it myself. And I said, well, the last time I had a toothache, I didn't go to Google and try to figure out how to get that out of there myself, right? I went to a professional, and I don't have a problem paying him, because I know that once I see him, that toothache is over. So let's think about that a little differently in this space as well. We don't have to learn all of these things. There are professionals out there. And not even new things, right? We're not even creating new products or any of that. Like, these tools existed to create wealth for other segments of our population for generations. Let's tap into some of those same things, and let's go back to some of those basic principles that maybe we don't know, but there's the industry experience there with some of the team members that you have access to.
Outstanding. I think fear of the unknown holds a lot of people back.
For sure.
And not knowing, or feeling that this is something out of reach for them, or they don't have access to it. And then that keeps them from being able to push forward and look for, that network, that additional capital to be able to drive things forward. Because as you're saying, as you do that, you may open up doors to access to other capital, especially if it's in the same vertical that you're trying to serve, right? And so, I think that fear of the unknown keeps a lot of people from being able to do that, which is a good segue over to my brother, Will. And Will, dealing with, a lot of, and just in knowing you, man, you're a person where, on first inventory, you seem like somebody that no matter what environment that someone puts you in, you're going to be able to adapt, overcome, or improvise, and be able to talk and deal with any kind of person. And, that's a special gift to have, but not everybody has it. And a lot of people coming from different environments, myself growing up in the military and having been in the military, my family's from Arkansas, and, that is my community, that is my strength. But I've also been able to have a lot more diverse background in terms of being able to deal with different kinds of people, but still staying true to who I am. So, when I look at you, I see a similar sort of reflection in that, and you deal with lots of different kinds of people and open doors for yourself for people who may not come from that type of background. What is your advice to them? And because I'm blending two questions together, actually, what is your advice to them with, if you're coming out of Bed-Stuy and that's all you've ever known, if you're coming out of Watts and that's all you've ever known, or Southwest Atlanta and that's all you've ever known, how do you break out of that into a wider world, but at the same time be true to yourself, where you're not compromising yourself and you're not what African Americans refer to as selling out, and I'm putting that in a nice way, and you know, but still able to accomplish your goals?
You know, that for me, it goes back to, you know, things I learned growing up as a military brat, right? Like my dad was in the military, served 20 years, and that constant moving helped me evolve that identity of like walking into a room and figuring out, you know, how to talk to the room, who was involved, what was going on, how, you know, this individual, I need to react to them. Everything is kind of, to me, it's a compartmentalized box. So I had to change that box all the time, right? So that's what allows me to do that. But also, you know, being Black, the first problem you have to do whenever you walk into any room is you've got to prove that you have the ability to be in the space. No matter what you do, no matter where you go, you know, I've been to so many different events, and the first thing that is there is like, there's always this effervescent feeling of like, I've got to let them know that I'm good in this room. You know, yeah, my NFL background has given me some kudos to that, but it also puts a lot of barriers up in the same sentence. So no matter where you're from, you know, you've got to show people that you can fill that space and fit exactly the ideal they need. You know, I've walked into, matter of fact, I know for a fact I've walked into 3 or 4 of my white friends' homes, and they have never had Black people in their house prior to that, and changed that identity. And like, you know, I'm the guy that's like, hey, is Will coming over for, you know, for dinner tonight? You know, that kind of thing. And at the same point, I don't have to change who I am to be that. I show them that, you know, the same things that we all have on this panel, right? We're educated. We're not crazy. We don't just jump off the handle and do things. There is always an understanding of how you can work alongside and be understanding of both sides of that. To me, I have to understand what your requirements are for me to be able to express how I can express myself. So whether that be, you know, you're trying to figure whether I'm, you know, the guy who's smarter than you, in some cases, whether I'm the guy who you may have more invested in something than I do at that time. If I'm trying to learn from you, you know, no matter what it is, you find that and craft it to build the globe that you two can work around. And that's formed many great relationships in both personal and business. You know, I mean, this is the kind of approach that had a guy who I never in my wildest dreams would have ever thought that he was worth $2.5 billion when I met him. And 10 years later, you know, he's literally calling me and said, hey, you know what? I want you and the kids to come down. I hadn't seen you in a while. Like, I'm sending the jet to get you guys. Like, you know, and it's just, you know, just the kind of relationship we formed. And to this day, you know, to be honest, he still doesn't know what I look like. He knew I was Black. Never knew what I looked like, though. And that's the, you know, the amazing part of it is like, and that relationship was nothing more than the fact that just being clear and concise with him and honest, like, I don't know what I can get you, you know, because when I first met him, he wanted me to come hang out with him for his birthday. And it's like, I don't know what I can get you. Like, now that I know what all this is going on, like, there's nothing that you can buy that I can provide you. So what can I give you? Like, I just asked him straight up, and I found the only 2 things I've ever given him were books on tape, because he loved to travel and listen to them. So I bought him, like, you know, when Audible really first started, I bought him like a 5-year membership to Audible, just as a thank you, right? And then friendship, those 2 things, like those are the only 2, and true honest friendship with that, like, you know, being able to have hard conversation. So get over the ideals of where you are, forget that, scrap all that stuff aside, throw it away. Just remind yourself of 2 things, you know, be yourself, but be the honest self, not the one that has to hide something, you know, under the hard shell. You don't have to be, you know, well, let's put it this way. You don't have to be a brick wall, and you don't have to be, you know, something that seems as fragile as a Fabergé egg. both things can be beautiful in their own right, but both have their own ideals. And you have to understand that it's okay to open up and discuss, you know, openly with people. But there's always, and I will say this with caution, there's always that point where you have to sit there and be understanding whether or not you're completely giving this person too much, or, you know, you're withholding enough to make sure that you still have stable ground, because that I think is always a common point too. And in business, it's very true. It's knowing where you get that slip in that conversation. Oh, I offered too much, right? Like that one point that you gave away was one too many. And it is a common ground that you have to do. Then the same in all relationships. You have to know how to keep that even keel. Shonda, everything you said, I was like, yeah, that's amazing to understand. When you talked about capital access and everything else, the same problem happens, and I can go back to an agricultural ideal. The same problem happens with a guy who, when the USDA started doing these African American loans, there's literally an individual in, I believe it was in Alabama. Every time he got an African American application, threw it in the trash. Plain and simple. And these farmers are looking for the same resources that every farmer around them is getting, everything that is given to them, and it's going directly in the trash. That became a much larger issue, but again, that access to capital, when you have those barriers that are already in place, it's like, oh, you're not going to qualify because you're already there, out the window. You don't even get the chance. You don't get a chance to prove that you have, any stability or any mindset or any, as we like to call it in the business world, goodwill that's gonna put placement in there. Those are still the barriers that we're still trying to overcome. You could be a Harvard grad as an African American, and they're still got to prove that you're the Harvard grad. You still got to prove that you deserve to be there. You still got to prove that you didn't just get the ride because of who you are. Like I've proved proven every day that I'm more than just this NFL guy. Like everybody's like, oh, you did this in the NFL and everything else. People don't know. I was also the guy who in college was in class every day at 8 a.m. to finish my classes so I could get to practice, and I would be sprinting across campus to class to get taped and walk out in the field right when we're stretching, because my classes lasted from 8 to like 2 o'clock every single day. My first class of the day was 3 hours long. I took 18 credit hours every single semester at college. So doing that, when you have the athlete schedule, study hall added, everything else, people will understand that's a lot of work. But for me, it paid off. It paid off with not only the work ethic that was there, but also beyond. And now I'm just reaping some of the benefits of that effort as well.
Excellent. I mean, and I think you're showing value. That's if I can encapsulate that into a word, I would say value. Showing value to people, no matter who they are, and what their background is, showing value in the marketplace, and more importantly, showing value to yourself. And I want to say value is not what you tell people you are, but what you show people you are. I mean, but I want to ask people to hang on just a little bit longer past 12 o'clock. I know this is an hour long, but I want to shut this down with JT on a very interesting, and I think it's a perfect question to be able to close this panel with, is, what was the aha moment and that made you, decide this is the path you're going to take. But then in that aha moment, there's struggles and there's roadblocks, and, what keeps you moving forward? Because if I take myself as an example, juxtapose it against, as I started out in IT, and then eventually M&A, and then eventually investment banking, no one believed in me. No, everybody was saying, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, or you can't enter this, you can't enter that. And, my belief in myself helped me to do that, but there still was a lot of roadblocks. So JT, if you can kind of, speak from your experience, and I think that's a good way to close out this panel, because that's something that everybody on this panel has gone through, as well as the attendees are going to go through, if not already gone through.
Wow. Thank you for the question to the gentleman. I think Aaron Buck asked a question, but to come behind Will and Will's balanced approach to every saying too much or saying too little. I'm talking about being in the room, all those things. That was incredible, Will. I really appreciate you sharing that. So for my aha moments, there are many, and I want to say to everybody here on the panel, I'm sure you can attest to this, especially Miss Alvina, there are many aha moments. There are many moments where you get on your knees, you say, thank you, Lord, that this happened this way, or it didn't go that way. And I think everybody can attest to that. So when a person asks me that question, when I was first playing college ball, I was invited by the young lady I ended up marrying for 20 years, by her and her friends to a concert with Pebbles and LA and Reed. They were the deal back then. I don't know if everybody remembers that.
Oh
right?
yeah, oh yeah.
So-
2 occasions.
Yeah, 2 occasions. So I was invited to the concert. Now I'm backstage VIP. I'm a ball player anyway, right? In college, but it was all cool. It was Daryl Strawberry, everybody, we all up in there. And then the next thing you know, she said, come with me onto the stage, right? So I go on stage with Pebbles and it's completely black out there. And then, I take off her coat, right? And then she gets to doing her thing. And then the next thing you know, when she ends, I go back and put her coat on her. Well, as Ms. Alvina said, that TV thing gets you hooked. I tell you, I was hooked Confunction style. You know what I mean? And what I mean by that is I wanted to put on live events and shows and concert, and I was still playing ball. So consequently, left that experience as an aha moment. How do I do that? And playing ball. Well, I ended up being on the USA junior national team, ended up going to Russia, Yugoslavia, where they, it's now Croatia and all this. I was in Ukraine and Kiev. I played in their capital city, and the Baltics against Sharonis Marciulionis and some of these other people that came to the NBA. And then when I came back, I was still saying, how do I do this? Well, through the Game Truths time, right, and all of that, I ended up putting on the concert. I know y'all know Yo-Yo, Ice Cube, Bone Thugs and Harmony, thanks to Eazy-E. I was able to start doing concerts, and I said, I'm gonna add TV to this. And the next thing you know, I was doing the Hip Hop Hall of Fame Awards on national TV. So I'm saying your aha moments come every step of the way as you're going forward. And so in business, after the show, after the difficulty with Tupac and Biggie passing away, the aha moment came. I was doing the Black College Step Show and college football championship in the Georgia Dome. Then the next aha moment comes when you realize that the brand that you created was created ahead of time and now it's in full demand. So when you ask an aha moment, I'm saying, man, I'm still living aha moments every single day, just being alive, being thankful, every step that we're taking, being on this panel. These are aha moments. The networking that you do with the people, take advantage of those aha moments, take advantage to learn from other people who have done it that you might not have done. Relax, be humble, learn, be willing to submit and learn. And then once you get it, then you can go and be that powerful person and those gifts that God has put in you to be a contributor to this world and to our community to make it a better place.
Man, it's a beautiful way to end it. I mean, just first and foremost, I want to say thank you to all the panelists. Will and Dre, thank you. Alvina, thank you. Shonda, thank you. JT, thank you. The information, first of all, is priceless. I'm just saying, this is recorded. We're going to put it out. Share this in your communities. Share this with your loved ones, with your business partners and friends. The information is priceless that you hear here. As Jay-Z said it, I'm giving you $1 million of advice for $9.99. I mean, I think that applies here. Don't sue me, Jay. Okay. The other thing is the honesty. I know, a lot of panelists, it's typically a lot more, I don't want to say it's structured, but there's other types of protocols that go into this, but I think the honesty is needed. We need that honesty. People need to hear that honesty. They need to hear the testimony. They need to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly, as they say. And I think everyone brought it. And want to say thank you for that. Please follow all the panelists on LinkedIn. You can reach them on their LinkedIn profiles. We will have their LinkedIn profiles on Pivot Capital site. I want to thank my partners in our marketing group in Pivot Capital for helping to put this on. So shout out to Christy, Rakesh, Brittany, and Jameson. I want to say thank you all. And this is not the end, but the beginning. I'm sure we'll do great things in the future together and look to have another event. And as stated, reach out and do great things. So thank you to everyone and have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Pivot Capital. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you,
Pleasure, panelists.
Everybody.
Look forward to working with y'all.
Thank
Have
you.
a
Definitely.
great day.
Have a
All
great
right. Have a great day.
All right.
God bless.